A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to another edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company. Sorry, I've got a non-free state on the mind today because we're going to be talking about what's going on in Illinois, specifically what's going on with one gun store in Illinois, Bordertown Guns. Its last day was yesterday. After 12 years of business in Momence, Illinois, on the border of Illinois and Indiana, Doug and Staci Duncan. Well, their dream is not dead, as you will learn, but it is certainly on hold right now, thanks to Illinois' gun control laws. We're going to get to that conversation in just 1 second. I do want to let you know that the Supreme Court did release opinions today. It did not release any opinion regarding the Second Amendment. So the Rahimi case is still out there. The Garland versus Cargill case is still out there. Supreme Court is scheduled to release more opinions tomorrow. They're getting towards the end of the term. So normally they release opinions on Thursdays. They hold their conference on Thursdays. And then they get the orders from the conference released on Monday. Over the next couple of weeks, I expect we're going to see decisions released on both Thursday and Fridays, and then orders coming out on Monday. We may even see some orders coming out on a Monday later in the month, or some decisions coming out on a Monday later in the month. But right now, the court still has, I believe, over 20 cases to decide before the end of its term. So we know that Garland versus Cargill and Rahimi are coming, but they did not get released today. All right, so Doug and Staci Duncan. I wrote about this couple a couple of weeks ago. I ran across just a local news story there in the Kankakee County area about Bordertown Guns closing because of a political storm. And I wrote about this because it bothered me. I hate to see how these gun laws, they're not stopping violent criminals in Chicago, right? But they are stopping people like Doug and Staci Duncan from making a living and supporting their community. And as you will hear, they did a lot to support their community. After I wrote that first story, Staci actually reached out to me via email. I never talked to her before. And we corresponded for a little bit. And I said, would you guys want to tell your story? And I would not have been offended if they said no. This is, a little raw, a little personal. But they did not. Staci and Doug were both very open about coming on the show, talking about their experience running Bordertown Guns and the untimely demise of their shop because of Illinois' gun laws, particularly the ironically named Protect Illinois Communities Act, which is now going to make this particular community less safe because it's going to be a lot harder for folks to exercise their right to keep bear arms in self-defense as a result of the shop's closure. So we had a really good conversation today. It was tough. I don't like talking to people when they're going through rough times. There's a part of me as a reporter, as a journalist, it always feels slightly exploitative, even though it's not my intention. It just kind of feels that way. But Doug and Staci, I got to say, were great. And it was a great conversation. I was heartbroken for him as we started talking. But by the end of the conversation, they had given me a little bit of hope for what the future holds for Bordertown Guns. And I am glad to see that they are hopeful as well, despite the nightmare that Governor J.B. Pritzker and Illinois Democrats have put them through over the past couple of years. Take a look and listen. Doug and Staci, thank you both for coming on the program today. It's really good talking with you. I do wish it were under better circumstances.
We do too. We really appreciate you guys having us on. Really appreciate all of the support.
Thanks, Cam.
Yeah, absolutely. So yesterday was the last day of business for Bordertown Guns, right?
12 years exactly to the day.
Yep, right on our anniversary date.
Yeah.
Oh man, what was yesterday like for you all? Obviously, it had to have been bittersweet. Did you have a lot of folks coming by to thank you, to give you hugs and?
I kept describing it as a funeral ever since we announced it on our social media page on June 1st. It's been like a funeral. We've just been inundated with so much support, so much love. And there was just so many people wanted to say something to make us feel better, but there was really nothing to say. There was nothing they could really do. They brought food.
Yesterday, they brought food. They brought sandwiches. We had, I think I hugged probably 500-600 people. and just, I'm sorry, man. This state's horrible. I wish it wasn't like this. You guys are going to be missing the community and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You guys are just nice thoughts.
Well, I mean, clearly, Bordertown Guns has been a big part of the community over the past 12 years, right? I mean, you are not only a gun store, but you're a range, an indoor gun range. You're also an archery range. I'm just curious, where, now that Bordertown Guns is closed, where is the nearest indoor range for folks to go to?
There's none in Momence. It was really the only, nice air-conditioned one in the whole Kankakee County region. And it's the only one they had the archery range too.
It's going to be quite a bit of a drive. Farther up north, I think is the only archery range, and there's another gun range in Kankakee County, but it's just a little different than ours.
Yeah. You talk about the funeral-like atmosphere yesterday, and as I was thinking about what to call today's program and what to call the post about our interview, I kept coming back to this phrase, death of an American gun store. And that's really what we're talking about here. So let me ask you all, because Bordertown Guns died an unnatural death. The support from the community is there. Who killed Bordertown Guns? J.B. Pritzker.
And the economy that Biden has created, we were great when this guy was in.
And Pritzker just put it on the coffin. I mean, when you put the gun ban in, we lost over half our retail sales just because guys were coming in. And the thing I want to talk about the retail sales is, like, when they put this gun ban in, the media puts a picture of an AR-15 and another photo of a AK-47, and that's not it. For an example, it's way beyond that. We have older guys that come in and been turkey hunting their whole lives, and they're getting older. They're getting in their 60s, and they're like, man, this 12 gauge hurts my shoulder. It's a pump action. He's like, I want to buy that new, Mossberg 930 semi-auto. Semi-auto takes a little bit of recoil out of it, a little softer on the shoulder, but he can't, because in the state of Illinois, because it has a pistol grip like every other turkey shotgun, it's now considered an assault weapon. And I don't know very many crimes ever committed by an old guy with a Bottomlands camo turkey gun.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
it just doesn't happen.
You're right. Now, listen, I'm sure you agree with me. We don't think that AR-15 should be banned either. But this was throwing hundreds, if not thousands, of models of firearms under the umbrella of assault weapon. Right. And then you got the courts, including the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. Actually, the trial judge did a good job, I think, of dissecting the Protect Illinois Communities Act. But when it got up to the Seventh Circuit, now all of a sudden you got this panel saying, well, yeah, I think this gun ban's fine because, these AR-15s, they're like machine guns, and, machine guns can be banned. I think that's wrong on the surface, even when we're talking about semi-automatic rifles. But as you say, this isn't just the scary black guns that we're talking about here, right? There are everything from, pistols, shotguns, and rifles all lumped in under this gun ban.
And it's just little simple things for kids. I mean, you have a Ruger 1022, nice laminate stock, maybe even the Olympic model with the thumb hole. That's illegal because it's the Olympic thumb hole model. And
you can't have a thumb hole stock.
It shouldn't be an assault weapon. I mean, what I meant by the AK photo and the AR-15 photo, they're not assault weapons at all. They fire just like every other gun that's just wood stocked. You got to squeeze the trigger one time, fire one bullet at a time. But the media makes the people who are just have no knowledge of firearms thinking that is what's in the movies. That's a full auto, and that's an assault weapon. But that's not what civilians in Illinois are even allowed to have.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
It's like you got a bunch of plumbers telling hairdressers how to do their job. They have no idea. I don't even think half these people that are making these laws have even been in a gun store, let alone bought a gun.
Right. I suspect you're right. So what made you 12 years plus ago? What made you decide that you wanted to open up Bordertown Guns?
I guess a little history. My grandpa was a gunsmith for 40 years. His name is Harold Strong. He wrote a book, published author on the history and digest of Stevens Firearms Company. And back then he drove around the country and met, the Joshua Stevens family and the factory buildings and all that stuff. And so that's been in my life growing up. I was around the hunting club, Pinewood Hunting Club in Iroquois County. I guided and hunted out there. I was in the military. So firearms has always been a huge part of my past, and I love them and enjoy the fun that comes with them and just the camaraderie with the family and the friends and the traditions that we have. And so I worked for AT&T for about 15 years, and the almighty cell phone took over the landline system, and the phone cables had no customers. So I seen it coming. I'm like, man, I'm getting an age. I need to make a jump into a different career so I have an actual retirement. So I said, you know what? I know firearms. I know the hunting, the fishing. I've done that my whole life. I mean, it's a passion. I love that industry. And if I can help the new kids get into it, I said, let's try this. And my wife thought I was a little crazy. She's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this.
It took some convincing.
So we got into the sports shop side of it. We opened up a gun shop, bait tackle shop, and it's just evolved from the last 12 years, our passion, until we end up getting, a complete full archery range, a complete full indoor gun range. And our dreams sort of come tumbling down. I mean, all these laws changed, and it's not fair. I get a little upset if I made some bad choices or decisions that crumbled the business. Okay, I can probably live with that. But when you have a Pritzker family who has a gun range in Wisconsin selling everything that I cannot sell, it's sort of hypocritical to the guy, I guess, who takes toilets out of his mansion so you don't have to pay taxes. So
stings a little bit more that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, we talked about the gun ban. But even before the gun ban, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, lawmakers and Governor Pritzker signed this into law, passed a bill that imposed all kinds of security mandates and all kinds of paperwork mandates on gun stores. Was that sort of the first?
That was the first.
So that was the first hit.
Yeah, that I dealt with most of that, and it's a money grab. It was a joke. It was literally a joke. I applied, I did all of the paperwork and sent the money that they required of a brick and mortar, updated all of our DVRs from 30-day to 90-day that they required. The funny thing was they said, you need to submit your safe storage plan. I said, okay, what is the requirements? What's your SOP for this? They said, well, you submit what you're going to do and we'll tell you if it's okay.
Yeah, that's how it came about. And all that was a money grab, because even the first license that they issued, we didn't get that till well after it expired.
2
They
years.
just wanted the money.
Wait, you didn't get your license from the state until after it had expired?
Yes, yeah. We finally received it after they cashed our check. I submitted all the paperwork that they required. 2 years later, we received our license, and it was expired.
And we were like, oh my gosh, are we going to be in trouble? You guys issued this license, but we're not up to date. And she's like, no, we're just.
No, what they said was, well, now it's time to renew. We need the money. I have to do the whole process all over again. I said, so you're telling me I'm receiving an expired license and I paid for it, but I didn't receive it until after it expired, and now I have to renew something I just now received? Okie dokie.
And what that did, it cost a lot of money. We have a lot of older guys, the FFLs, and they end up giving up their FFL because they're like, this is way too complicated. And it's too costly. The firearms industry thinks like, gun shops get rich, but I'll tell you, there's not margins in firearms. No. It's a passion. So these older guys, they only sell a few firearms, a year. Mm-hmm. They're like, it's not worth me having my license. So then
they got rid of half of all of the FFLs in Illinois. So they did a good job with that one.
Yeah, right. Didn't do anything to reduce crime or anything, but they got rid of a lot of, as you say, a lot of FFLs, a lot of folks who've been involved in this industry for decades. And I think that was the goal. And, I suspect that if Governor Pritzker is aware that your shop closed yesterday, he's probably pretty pleased about that fact, right? Even though the community is not. So what's next for you guys?
We don't really know yet.
So here's we've talked about it. We discussed it. So as this hit us so hard, we had an opportunity to sell our business to somebody who maybe had deeper pockets to fight this battle harder. We have sold everything. We have sold property that we own in Southern Illinois that was bought and paid for to plug in to keep the gun shop running. All my AT&T investments over the years, 401ks, that's all gone. Lots of money. Now it got to the point like, okay, I guess a good fighter's got no one to throw in the towel a little bit because we're going to be out of cash. So I said, we got to come up with a plan. Had a potential buyer. The buyer is a well-known established businessman who's got over half the money to put down on the business to buy it. I was just told the other day that through multiple different bank systems, even with half down, they don't want to loan money to a gun shop and gun range. So that takes us out into the question where, like, okay, so the state restricted us. We can't do our business. Our plan doesn't work anymore. We can't sell it to somebody who has a great plan with half down, which is, I can't imagine a bank saying no to half down, but
right.
Banks. Now they've forced our hand into going into like a bankruptcy situation. And because we were small mom and pop shop, we had it under Bordertown Guns Incorporated, but Doug Duncan and Staci Duncan had to sign a personal guarantee on the loans because, we're not a huge company. So they're like, we want your signature. So by doing that, now we got to file bankruptcy personally and business-wise. And so I think after this is done, I think we want to take a breather for a moment because we fought a battle that's just we thought we could weather the storm for the Supreme Court, the federal Supreme Court, to hear the case, to hear that this ban was unconstitutional, but we just didn't have enough money to buy time to the Fed here. So, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Please finish.
So I guess moving forward, we're going to do this again. I don't know exact time frame. Bankruptcy, 7 years. They want to throw somebody who has the knowledge out of this fight for 7 years. This succeeded. I think later on, after all that paperwork's done and that part's done and sealed, then I'm going to ask help from people. I'm going to ask for them to say, hey, we started a little movement to make this fight happen, but we just didn't have the resources to do that. Gun enthusiast, Second Amendment enthusiast, sport enthusiast. Hey, if you want to see guns sold, in the state of Illinois, ammo coming across your state line, help us. So I think we'll ask for gifts down the road. But right now, if I ask for a gift, that money will just be null and void because we're going to have to go to this bankruptcy portion at this time. And then the trustee of the federal bankruptcy courts will just take that money. So we'll have to wait for a lot of stuff to clear.
We would like to get back in the fight once we lick our wounds and see what God has in store for us. We still have a lot of prayer to go over to figure out what path God has us on. And that's essentially the path we want to be on.
Yeah.
So we'll see how all this goes and how this all plays out, how we tie these ends up and see what we can do in a gun-loving state.
You talk about, again, just this wave of anti-gun legislation that's passed over Illinois over the past decade or so. And it does sound like you all were able to weather some of that storm, right? Was it the gun ban that really put the nail in the coffin for Bordertown Guns? I mean, again, you talked about half of your sales just disappearing because you're there close to the border. The border town is between Illinois and Indiana, right? So if folks want to now, again, they're supposed to register these guns under Illinois law, but there's nothing stopping an Illinois resident from driving over to Indiana and buying a firearm that you can't sell at your gun store, right?
No.
Yes and no.
Yeah.
Yes and no. Okay.
So they get far enough into the state, it could happen.
Yeah. I mean, they could.
A lot of companies put policies into place saying like, okay, you're an Illinois resident. We believe you're close to Chicago. Our store policy says we're not going to sell you a gun that has more than 10 round capacity.
Yeah.
Because that's a Chicago law. Illinois state law states no more than 15 round capacity in a handgun. So some of those stores that are close by the border tend to put policies in place and restrict. So if you go to other states like Indiana, they may deny complete ammo sale because they're like, no, you're from Illinois. We don't even want to deal with you.
Okay.
And it's even got Indiana residents, man, in this state, because like you'll have an Indiana resident go to like a local store like Cabela's, and they're like, oh, okay, I'm just going to grab an AR-15 magazine. There's an AR mag on the shelf. It's in the bag. Throw it in my cart and go. And this is an older gentleman, like 60. Definitely, clearly tell he's 60 years old. And they're like, we need to see an ID with that magazine. And he's like, excuse me? He's like, well, we need to know you're not from Illinois. He's like, I don't have to show an ID to buy a magazine. That's crazy. But because of Illinois so close, they're doing that. And it's actually making some of the Indiana residents mad that I've heard that there's an actual, like they're boycotting going to those stores because they're infringing upon their rights of having to show ID and stuff for simple gun accessory.
These Illinois laws affect more than just Illinois.
Yeah.
The Indiana residents are fed up of having to have their Second Amendment rights infringed upon just because of the policies next door. It's not against the law for an Indiana resident to walk into any gun store and buy an AR mag off the shelf just like a shovel. They shouldn't have to provide that information just because this state over here has all of these different laws. It affects more than Illinois when they pull this. It affects so much more.
And even like we had like, Indiana customers. And it took a long time to get Indiana customers to even want to shop in Illinois because we're on the border. We're neighbors, but they're like, I can't come to your shop and buy anything. I'm like, no, that's not true.
Those are policies that certain stores put in place. They were to the point where they're like, they would call and say, can I come to the gun range? And we're like, yeah, come over to the gun range. Like, I didn't think I can bring guns over there.
But we had to tell them like, hey, in Illinois to transport a firearm, you got to have your weapon clear, cased, nothing in the chamber, no magazines in the gun, ammo in a separate compartment. Had to, so they wouldn't get in trouble once they crossed the state lines.
Right.
Yeah.
But they go to other stores like, like a Farm and Fleet. And Farm and Fleet just says, no, we're not selling you ammo because you're from Indiana.
So they think that that's the law.
Oh, wow.
So it was really hard to even get Indiana customers to come over to buy the items that we still had in inventory that we were sitting on that we couldn't sell to anybody else. But we didn't get to sell all of them because we couldn't sell them because they wouldn't come because they thought they couldn't.
And it took 12 years to try to re-educate the people what actually occurs, with these laws. But then when the gun ban comes in, they're like, oh, there we go. See, that's what we thought it was. Nothing. And it's like, that still doesn't apply to you. And then you have to re-educate everybody. So there's a loss of revenues come across the state lines as well.
Which, again, I'm sure that the billionaire governor is not too disappointed about. Right? It's not coming out of his pocket. And all of this, again, was ostensibly to make Illinois a safer place. Right? That was the name of the bill, the Protect Illinois Communities Act. Doug, I don't want to get too deep into your background, but you do have a background in law enforcement in addition to working for AT&T. So I want to ask you, just from a law enforcement perspective, are these gun and magazine bans helpful in fighting crime?
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. The changing all these laws, we don't need new laws. We just need to enforce the ones we have. Status quo would be fine. Good people don't hurt people. Guns don't hurt people. Bad people hurt people. And those bad people don't go to a shop like mine. They don't go to, your local, like a running store and say, hey, I want to buy a gun. I mean, they go through federal background checks. All these people have, and they have FOID cards in Illinois. So absolutely you have some kind of morals in your body because you've already been given the opportunity to buy a firearm through this card, which is ridiculous.
Right.
But they vetted you. Here you go. So you've got morals. Now, if you've done everything right your whole life, why would you just go buy a gun to go commit a crime? It's the chance of that is very slim to none. And then most gun owners own multiple guns. They have lots of them. we have a 3-day waiting period, the Brady law in the state of Illinois. And it says if you buy a firearm in the state of Illinois, you need 3 days to cool down. Most gun owners have multiple firearms. If that's the case, they're going to go home. If they want to commit a crime, just go grab the one they already own. And then even the new people, they have morals, they have compasses. They're not going to do that.
We're not the problem. I don't understand why they don't focus on the criminal who actually is committing crime. It just seems like in Illinois, the criminals aren't their focus. How about actually prosecute people who commit crimes with firearms instead of focusing on the gun owners who haven't done anything wrong?
In the state of Illinois, when I was an officer in Illinois, I am an officer in Indiana. I'm a deputy over here. I'm still being subpoenaed for simple domestic battery cases to go to court so they can finish that case from 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah. That doesn't sound like a speedy trial.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing, but Staci, you said we're not the problem. From a crime fighting perspective, I think you're absolutely right. But clearly, Pritzker and a majority of Democrats in the state legislature do think that you and I and Doug and every other lawful gun owner is the problem, right? Because at some point, they don't like to talk about it, but at some point it really is their belief that the gun is the problem, that gun ownership is the problem, that our Second Amendment is the problem that needs to be solved. And if they can solve that by restricting our rights, then there has to be some sort of effect on violent criminals, right? If we ban guns for people to get them legally, well, then how can the criminals get a hold of the guns? Now, I know I feel the same way. It doesn't make any sense to me, but I think that is their attitude. And I don't think that they understand, nor do I think they care about the destruction that they're doing to businesses like yours, to the communities where these shops are located, in addition to the damage being done to a fundamental civil right. And, there's no way around that. They are infringing on people's rights. They are trying to, take away an inherent right that we possess as American citizens. And that is their goal.
Well, here's the problem. So they act like they care about these gun laws and they think the guns are the problem is what they portray in the news media to make people think they're this good guy. They're here to help Americans, make you safe. His family owns a gun shop in Wisconsin. That's
not anymore.
Yeah, that's not true.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He'll post this. He's going for a presidential candidacy is what he's trying to do. He's trying to paint a picture and say, hey, I pushed a gun ban to the state of Illinois. I want that next presidential seat. That's ridiculous. And that's all he's trying to do. California has had gun bans, and the bans have been lifted. The federal Supreme Court ruled those unconstitutional. He's going to have qualified immunity, so I can't go after him for destroying my business. I mean, destroying everything I've worked for. I'm 45 years old, almost 46. Everything I've worked for my whole entire life has been plugged into that business, trying to get it up and running so it's to be successful, so we can enrich all the lives around us. And then when we finally get old enough, maybe my son will take over. Maybe we'll have another couple in the community that want to take over the business, and I could retire. That's why I left AT&T, because I'm like, they're not going to be around for 15 more years. I need to have a retirement. And he destroyed that. But with qualified immunity, because he acted in good faith, knowing the federal Supreme Court has already ruled against these things in other states, I can't go after him. That's absurd as well. Yeah.
I will say that the Supreme Court, unfortunately, has not ruled definitively on an assault weapons ban case. I wish that it had, because if they did, then, you all would be in a better situation. This is one of the frustrating things from my perspective over the past couple of years, just covering sort of the legal system, is that we had that great decision in Bruin. And since then, the Supreme Court has basically said, we're going to let the lower courts duke it out and come to us, in 3 or 4 years, and maybe we'll take one of these cases. And in the meantime, harm is being done, right? That was one of the reasons why Judge Stephen McGlynn, the U.S. District Court judge, granted an injunction against PICA because of the harms that were going to be done to people like yourself, to other lawful gun owners in Illinois. And again, that's when the Seventh Circuit stepped in and said, nah, they're just trying to regulate things that are like machine guns. So that's okay. It is frustrating. And I hope it's probably not going to happen, but I hope that the justices might listen to this program, because they're up there, the sort of 50,000 foot level, kind of looking down on the rest of us. And, everything operates on court time, but not for us, right? We live in the real world, and these laws have implications and these laws have impacts. And unfortunately, the court might want to wait for the Seventh Circuit and the Ninth Circuit and the Fourth Circuit to figure out where they all stand on so-called the Sullivan bans. But in the meantime, real people are being harmed. Lives are being affected. Dreams are dying as a result of the court's inaction and as a result of Pritzker's actions against our right to keep and bear arms and against businesses like yours.
Right. And then if those stores keep dwindling and dwindling and dwindling, there's not going to be a place for someone to buy those kind of things. That whole the Second Amendment view of even bearing arms, if they can't have them, it's going to be forgotten. And yeah.
And one of the things that we tried to do at our shop, it wasn't of course we're trying to make a living, obviously. But the other thing was we wanted to grow up the next generations in shooting sports through archery, through, we sold bait and tackle. We were thrown, a stone's throw from the river. So we had a lot of wonderful fishing in our town. And we were trying to grow up the next generations in that. We would host any of the area events.
The 4-H groups would come in.
Yeah.
They use our business establishment as their meeting halls, free of charge, come in, and then we had all the gun range open to them. So they would shoot their 22 rifles in there for competitions. They would come in and use the archery side, and we gave them all the Genesis bows to use through a ministry, an outdoor ministry we had before the gun shop.
Yeah. We reached out, to lots of people around the community that needed a place to kind of host their youth projects. And we did a lot of that over the years. And we would have a lot of raffles over the years, benefits for numerous things as far as different organizations throughout the communities, people that were afflicted with cancer that needed to raise money for all of their bills. We had a local family that we know dearly, love them dearly. They lost their daughter. She was only 14 years old and she collapsed on a basketball court. And, we wanted to make sure that they were taken care of. So we were able to raise money for them. And
then all your Delta waterfowl, your Ducks Unlimited, your Whitetails Unlimited, your National Wild Turkey Federation, your Pheasants Forever, all those big organizations. We do all the gun raffles and we do all the stuff to help them raise money for all those projects.
To keep this all going.
And if they can't find the mom and pop shop to help them articulate the movement of those prizes, it hurts them.
Yeah.
Lose all of it.
And that's conservation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, honestly, I wish that I had a shop like Bordertown Guns near me because you all are doing incredible work. And I know that you are heartbroken. I know that your customers are heartbroken. I know there are a lot of people in the community who are heartbroken. Just, talking with you, it is so unfair what has happened. And we're all old enough to know that life isn't fair. But I hope that the dream hasn't died. And I hope that you all are able to rebuild at some point in the near future. I hope it doesn't take 7 years. And I'd ask you to stay in touch with me. Keep me up to date on what's going on. You have an open platform anytime you want to come back, because I know that our audience would like to help however they can too. And so I cannot thank you enough for coming on the program today. I know that this is a painful time and a painful thing that y'all are going through. And I'm sorry that you're going through this. I wish that we had been able to defeat the Protect Illinois Communities Act. I wish that we had been able to undo Pritzker's agenda. And I'm sorry. I think that relief is going to come, but I'm sorry that it did not come soon enough to save your shop.
That's okay. I don't want this to be a sad stuff. And, it is sad, but, our story isn't over. This is just another chapter. We had so much support that I didn't even really, I guess I was naive to the fact of the impact that we did make. And that makes us just feel so good.
We get on Facebook, which is a horrible platform because they restrict everything we do.
Yeah.
Because our name is Guns, so we normally violate community standards just because of our name. But if you just look at the outpouring just on that platform,
On our Facebook page,
not one bad word was said. We're gonna miss you. We love you guys. Just the respect you gave us, and it's gonna come back. That guy right there in the corner, he's wearing that red hat.
Mm-hmm.
And if you read it, says "Make America Great Again." We're gonna make the gun shop great again.
Yeah.
It's gonna take us some time to rebuild. We ain't giving up hope. God's got a plan, and His plan doesn't change. So we're just gonna need a little bit more help than what we can do ourselves.
Yeah.
When it comes.
Well, if you're not giving up, I know that the community around you is not going to give up on you guys either. And like I said, please keep us up to date. I would love to have you back on the program. Would love to follow your journey as you try to rebuild, hopefully across the border in Indiana, where life is a little freer. But Doug and Staci Duncan, again, thank you so much for joining me today. And I know you've heard this hundreds of times already over the past couple of days, but thank you for everything that you did for the community there.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. This was wonderful. We really appreciate you. God bless you. Thank you.
God bless you guys, and we'll stay in touch.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cam.
Again, my thanks to Doug and Staci Duncan for joining me on the program. I hope this is not going to be the last time that we speak. In fact, I told them after we got done with the interview, you stay in touch. You've got my cell phone. You've got my email. We want to hear from you. We want to hear updates about what's going on. So hopefully we'll have some good news to report from the Duncans here in the near future. And if there is a way to help them reestablish themselves across the border at some point, we will certainly let you know about that. All right, on to today's Armed Citizen story, our good deed of the day, and our recidivist report. We will start there with a case out of Asheville, North Carolina, where a teenager was sentenced as an adult for shooting 2 minors at a Juneteenth festival last year. Now, you see that headline and you might think, all right, well, what's the problem, right? You got a juvenile. He's been sentenced in adult court where there are stiffer sentences involved. So why are we talking about this particular deal? Well, because of the sentence that was actually handed down. 17-year-old Juwan Deshun Hackett of Asheville pleaded guilty to 2 counts of felony assault with a deadly weapon inflicting serious injury, 1 count of felony possession of a stolen firearm, as well as 1 count of possession of a firearm by a minor, according to a news release from District Attorney Todd Williams' office. Hackett was originally charged as a juvenile, but his case was moved to Superior Court in September of last year so that he could be tried as an adult. Hackett is accused and pled guilty again to 2 counts of felony assault with a deadly weapon. He shot a 14 and a 15-year-old, leaving them seriously wounded at the end of Asheville's Juneteenth festival in 2023. According to the Citizen Times of Asheville, at 8:51 on June 17th last year, a young man that identified as Hackett, wearing a red jacket, black ski mask, and a fanny pack across his chest, shot 2 juveniles with a 2-tone silver and black pistol in Pack Square Park, right in front of the Buncombe County Courthouse. Hackett, again, 16 years old at the time. He was taken into custody minutes after the shooting, wearing the same clothes described by witnesses. There was a black 9mm handgun found in the bushes nearby. Investigators later found social media videos of a fight between the victims and Hackett, who was seen drawing that 2-toned handgun, according to the release. Forensic evaluation of the handgun matched a gun that was stolen from a vehicle in Macon County in 2022. DA's office didn't specify how Hackett ended up with a firearm, but apparently the gun was stored in an unsecured vehicle there in Macon County. So just a reminder, make sure that you don't leave your gun unlocked in a car where you are not keeping an eye on it, where somebody like Mr. Hackett or another individual could just open the door and take whatever is inside. That's even if you don't own a gun, keep your doors locked, man. But if you do own a firearm, it is essential that you keep it secure. We don't need laws. We don't need to punish victims of burglaries, but we do need folks to keep an eye on their stuff. All right. So in the case of Mr. Hackett, his case gets moved to adult court, but again, he's able to take a plea deal. And despite pleading guilty to some serious crimes, I would argue that Mr. Hackett did not receive a serious sentence. The judge in this case sentenced Hackett to 2 consecutive felony sentences. The first, an active sentence of 20 to 36 months, or up to 3 years behind bars in the North Carolina State Prison. Note the key word there, or key words are up to 3 years in prison. starts at 20 months. It's a little bit more than a year and a half. Time off for good behavior means that Mr. Hackett could be out in less than a year. The second sentence that Hackett received is a 3-year supervised probationary term. So once Hackett is released from prison, again, likely in less than 12 months, he could be given a suspended prison term of 25 to 42 months or up to 3.5 years in prison. Again, if he gets into trouble once he's on probation. Katie Curtis, the assistant DA prosecuting the case, said, I gave a lot of thought to the structure of this plea, and it is designed with my sincere hope and that of the state that upon his release from custody, Mr. Hackett will receive the structure, the education, and support that he needs to never again be involved in the criminal justice system. Well, I hope that that's the case too. But at the same time, I can't help but be bothered by the fact that someone who shot 2 other teenagers could essentially be released from prison. Oh, while possessing, he shot 2 teenagers with a stolen firearm. Could walk out of prison less than a year after he was sentenced for that crime. I have a problem with that. The purpose of the juvenile justice system may be rehabilitation. The purpose of the adult prison system, I think rehab certainly should play a role, right? Again, we don't want to see recidivists. But part of the role of the adult criminal justice system is that there are consequences for your actions. And I'm not sure that telling a 17-year-old, hey, you shot 2 people, if you, keep your nose clean behind bars, you'll be out in less than a year. I mean, that sends a message. I'm just not sure it sends the right message. In fact, I'm pretty sure it doesn't. Now, on to today's armed citizen story from, I think this was Sunbury, Delaware, I think it was. No, Sunbury, Ohio, excuse me. Delaware County. That's why I was thinking Delaware. A man who claimed self-defense, charged in a homicide, acquitted by a jury of his peers in the Buckeye State. Marshall Graham of Hilliard, Ohio, charged with voluntary manslaughter for the shooting outside of a fast food restaurant in Delaware County. Prosecutors say the shooting stemmed from an argument in the parking lot that continued onto the street and then ended outside of a Wendy's on December 14th, 2023. Graham and the individual who was shot wrestled and fought. Police say that Graham shot the victim twice and then drove home. 911 call, though, revealed that Graham told police where he could find them. He called 911 afterwards. Graham's attorney had argued that the victim was, the person who was shot anyway, was the primary aggressor. Said that his client acted in self-defense. He didn't take a plea deal. Case went to trial. And after 5 days, not of deliberation, but a 5-day long trial, the jury there in Delaware County found Marshall Graham not guilty of manslaughter, accepting his self-defense claim. Again, it doesn't matter, honestly, sometimes how obvious this act of self-defense might be. If a prosecutor wants to charge somebody, you can indict a ham sandwich, right? We've seen that. And you can bring a case to trial. Thankfully, in this case, though, it looks like the jury was able to consider the evidence and conclude that Mr. Graham was not the initial aggressor and that he was fighting to save his life when he fired that round. Finally, today's good deed of the day, in the right place, at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. An off-duty firefighter in Tennessee who saved a man's life at a graduation ceremony. Excuse me. This was just a couple of days ago. And really an amazing act on the part of this firefighter. So this was a Marshall County High School graduation, Cornersville High in particular. Man in the back of the room where the graduation is taking place collapses on the gym floor. Jace Pickle, who is a firefighter and advanced emergency medical technician with the Franklin Fire Department, says the senior citizen was in full cardiac arrest. Within 10 seconds of this guy dropping around, Pickle, who is there to see his 2 nieces graduate, runs over to the man. He said, I heard him hit the ground before I actually saw it, and I just jumped up and I did what I thought I was supposed to do. And when I got to him, I felt for a pulse. I didn't feel one. He wasn't breathing. So I just started CPR. So Pickle and others are working to revive this man. Graduation's on pause, obviously, at that point. All attention's on the back of the room. But they were able to get a pulse. The man did start breathing again. Pickle said the next thing you know, he's coming back around. He's talking to us. The man taken to a waiting ambulance. But before the graduation continued, according to WKRN in Nashville, Tennessee, the crowd in the gym erupted in applause, thanking all of those who acted to save that man's life, including Mr. Pickle. He said the moment still makes his heart smile. He says it was pretty awesome. A lot of my friends, man, he said they put stuff on Facebook, made my wife proud and my kids. He said the next morning I'm on shift. Chief Johnson's already sent me an email saying he heard what I did and how proud he was of it. He said, I feel good. He said, I didn't want to brag, didn't really want all this, didn't want all the posts, but I'm here now, and I guess I should just eat it up. Well, good for Mr. Pickle. You know, I think that's right. Don't let it go to his head. But you know, these accolades are well deserved, because if it weren't for the actions of Jace Pickle and these others in the crowd who responded, you know, what should have been the happiest moment of these teens' life could have been the worst moment ever for one family. And that was not the case, because Jace Pickle and others were in the right place at the right time and were willing and able to do the right thing. So, Jace, here's one more accolade for you. Thank you for your very, very good deed. All right, that is going to do it for this edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company. Thank you for being a part of the program today. I'm looking forward to seeing you back here next week. Monday will be our next Bearing Arms Cam and Company, but we will be updating Bearing Arms between now and then, constantly, keeping you up to date on all the latest Second Amendment news and information, including perhaps a decision in Rahimi or Cargill as early as Friday morning. Make sure you're checking out BearingArms.com. If you like what you see, I would also encourage you to become a VIP or VIP Gold member. Just go to BearingArms.com/subscribe. Use the promo code GUNRIGHTS, and you can save 50% off of your membership. You will get exclusive content you won't get anywhere else. You will get an ad-free experience and the ability to comment on stories. But you'll also be getting the warm, fuzzy feeling of knowing that you are supporting the independent pro-Second Amendment journalism that we are doing at Bearing Arms. And in this day and age of big tech censorship, media bias, your support is more important than ever. So, again, thank you for all of your support. We have a great weekend. We'll see you back here soon. Until then, be well, be safe, and be free.